With the new direction Genshin Impact has taken, so giving us clear answers with every patch, we don't really get that many chances to think things through on our own and come up with theories we then need to wait to see if they were right or wrong anymore, but with the Luna 6 livestream we finally got the power back. Today we will check out the Temple of Space to figure out why it exists in the first place, but above all, I have a pretty huge theory you might be interested in. Something I've been trying to figure out for ages and that finally clicked, but first. This is a theory video and leaks are prohibited in the comment section. I will use information available in the game, but my theories and conclusions are not to be considered the official lore of the game, unless I got something right and is confirmed in a later update of the game itself. Well then, grab your right hand? That sounds so wrong. Anyway, let's get this video started. The Temple of Space looks amazing, but is it me or does it look like Constellation Metropole from Simulanka? We will access this domain from the statue of Barbados at the sanatorium in Dormant Port, but why is this statue here? Well, the one in Mondstadt is not the original statue built by Venerare, the leader of the Lawrence clan from the Ark War. The original statue was torn down when the aristocracy took over Mondstadt during Vanessa's time, but while the oath inscribed on the bottom of the statue was lost, we were never told what happened to the statue itself. If the one in Dormant Port is the original statue, then this might explain why we can use it to get to the Temple of Space. This statue would be the real gateway to Celestia. But there's a problem. Why does it connect to Asmoday's Temple of Space rather than, I don't know, the Temple of Time, since Venti is basically Israel's son? Considering how everything in the temple is meant to be frozen in time, could it be that it was built by the four shades together? Also very interesting is the fact that people from the Unified Nation, or more specifically from when Nibelung came back, are living in the temple, almost as if Asmodee saved them from the War of Funerary Flame. These people have also been alive since then. It's been more than 6,000 years since that war. So is their immortality a result of the Temple of Space being frozen in time, or are they primordial humans, the version of humanity that existed before the laws of Tevat were created? Moving on to the weird right-hand companion, Dax, it is an enigma. First of all, I think the livestream showed us the wrong succession of events. Considering that in this scene we're with Historia and Titlin but Dex isn't with us, the temple will probably go on high alert as soon as we are teleported there. We will then end up in the apathic interval and fight Melanta, and only after we will have defeated her will Historia call upon Dex. This makes me think that Dex might be part of Melanta, who will realize that we're not there to change the place and break its rules, and she will ask us to restore some sections of the temple. Talking about the Watchers, Melanta also tells us about Asmodee being missing, and by the way, right now the Traveler is basically the only one who still doesn't know that the unknown god is one of the Shades, but also that Nihil has fallen from grace, and I think that Nihil might be the other Watcher we will fight in Dormant Port, the fallen Vigil that fell into the mortal world. Lastly, we still don't know when Asmodee went missing, but since one of the places she saved is the Desert Pavilion from Sumeru, and the description of the Desert Pavilion Chronicle artifact set talks about Gurabad, we could think that she was still around at least until the Archon War, which kinda makes me think she disappeared during the Cataclysm, but we really don't know. Now, this was all nice and easy, but my next theory is on a whole different level. The primordial one is not the Heavenly Principles. Hold, don't leave, the theory is completely different this time. As most of you know, I've believed for the longest time that the Primordial One was the entity that came out of the Eternal Throne to fight the dragons as soon as it arrived on Tevat, a first war that apparently never existed, but let's ignore that, while the Heavenly Principles were the second who came, who fought and defeated the Primordial One, taking over the planet and making it what it more or less is today. Now, the second part is obviously wrong since Nibelung caused the funerary year, but the first one may still be partially right. Let's remember that Before Sun and Moon was written by the people of Enkanomiya, and it describes events that allegedly happened before the creation of the humans and from the humans' point of view. It's not entirely unbiased, which might also be the reason why the humans believed there was a war between the Primordial One and the dragons, even though the moon goddesses never mentioned it. It might be something the humans were told to justify the fact that they suddenly owned the place to the point of fighting Nibelung when he came back, even though in reality it was his planet. Anyway, another theory I've always had is that just like Astaroth was called Kairos, because saying the true name of the shades means instant death, Phanes, whose identity the people clearly had doubts about, wasn't the Primordial One. It has always been Asmoday, the Shade of Space, because Phanes created the microcosm of the world inside its eggshell, and this is what led the scribe to write the Primordial One may have been Phanes. The people were confused, and if I'm right, they were rightfully so. They knew that the Primordial One created the Four Shades, but they also never saw this entity, so they tried to deduce who it was. If the Primordial One is a creator god and Phanes/Asmoday created everything for the humans, then these two entities might have been the same, but how could a shade be the Primordial One if the Primordial One created the shades in the first place? The humans were aware that there was a fault in their logic, which only worsened once they ended up underground, and the shades, or better yet the Primordial One and its 3 other shining shades, couldn't hear their lamentations. Now, is there something else that might point toward Asmoday being the Primordial One? Well, for starters, no one else from the Unified Nation has ever mentioned the Primordial One. The Hyperboreans called the Heavenly Principles the Lord of the Seven Calamities, the Father of all and Mother of the Gods, an entity of gender unknown, while we don't know what they called Asmoday since the 5th prayer, the one about her, is missing. What else? Well, you might say that in Before Sun and Moon, Phanes is defined as an androgynous being with a crown and wings, but this could also be easily explained. Renova has wings, Astaroth has a crown, a massive one at that too, and although we're used to seeing Naberius looking like granddaughter, her original appearance had short hair and kinda looked like a young boy with female features, so what the people saw, if they're ever actually seeing the shades with their own eyes, was probably all of them together. Like Naberius, the one who gave them life, was in front of the other shades, so they saw Astaroth's crown above her head and the wings on the sides, and they believed they saw a single entity that looked androgynous with wings and a crown. Lastly, and this is what solidified the theory, at least for me, is the fact that if there was hunger, the heavens would bring down food and rain, and if melancholy were to spread, the heavens would reply with their voices. Now, Asmoday is the shade of space that rules over the sky, but what is the sky? In real life, the sky is both the universe itself that we see during the night, so the stars, the Milky Way, and so on, but also the atmosphere that allows us to live on the Earth, the thing that turns blue when the sun hits it. The same goes for Teyvat. The sky is both the starry night sky, so the microcosm of the world that we see at night and that we saw from the moon, so the actual fake sky that is contained in something that the Enkanomians call the eggshell, most likely the border Alice talked about that keeps Teyvat hidden from the actual universe, but also the atmosphere that turns the sky blue during the day, so the monitor dome that Moika punched and Dottore sliced open that interestingly has a similar visual effect as Asmoday's cubes. What I mean to say is that originally the world probably didn't have nor need an atmosphere for the dragons to live, since they are manifestations of the light realm elements, but when the Eternal Throne arrived, Asmodee not only hid the planet inside something and created a microcosm within, but she also created the Monitor Dome to give the planet an inhabitable atmosphere for the humans. Now, going back to whom the people believe the Primordial One was, they've always known about the Heavenly Principles, even though that wasn't the name they used back then, so they began calling them the Primordial One since everything started with them. Then Asmodee recreated the world for the humans and they started having doubt about who the Primordial One was supposed to be. if it was the god that created the shades but never interacted with the humans, or the shade that created everything for them and that cared for them, reason why she created a place, the Temple of Space, to preserve fragments of their civilizations, a place where change is a breach of the law, so that these fragments would persist unchanged for eternity, so the humans didn't really know who they were worshipping anymore. The Primordial One may have been Phanes. Lastly, as time went by and the heavens kept providing for them and everything came down from the sky as soon as they asked for it, they just made an arbitrary decision, so Asmoday fully became the Primordial One, and they began to worship her and the other three shades. Could it be that the Heavenly Principles got pissed by this decision? I mean, didn't the Hyperboreans basically ask Pictamunen, the Heavenly Principles, to just leave them alone? No wonder they aimed the nails straight at the main cities of the unified nation, but also that Asmoday just up and left, turning into a traitor, and maybe even caught the twins and prevented them from leaving Teyvat so that they would finally stop the Heavenly Principles from wiping out the humans she loves so dearly. And that's it, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, and if you're interested in Genshin Impact theory videos, consider subscribing. My next video will definitely be about Luna 6 and everything we will uncover about Asmoday, so once I've played everything, I'll start working on it. I really can't wait for this update to drop. I think we all needed an update just like this. Well then, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, over and out.